This is something that just warrants a quick acknowledgement. As you might or might not know, Colin Liddell disbanded or put into amber, I think was the term that was used, the old site Affirmative Right, which before that had been Alternative Right, and before that it was alternativeright.com, and then it became alternativeright.blogspot.com after the Christmas Day purge. But I don't want to go too far into the weeds with all of that. Suffice to say, this is the site. If you go to affirmativeright.blogspot.com, this is what purports to be an archive of the articles. And if you just look at it, you'd think, oh well, this is, I guess this is like a complete list of all of the material that was posted under the name Alternative Right between the year of its inception, 2010, and the year that it was disbanded, 2022. And if you scroll down a bit here, about this blog, Colin writes, "This is the archive site of the alt-right. It represents the work of the original alternativeright.com, founded in 2013. Its resurrection as a blog in 2013. Founded in 2010, its resurrection as a blog in 2013. Its name changed to Affirmative Right in 2010, up to its discontinuation in 2022. Alrighty then. That sounds pretty complete, doesn't it? And as you might or might not know, the site Alternative Right was founded by Richard Spencer initially. In 2010, I came on board, and sometime around then, maybe a little bit afterwards, but generally around the same time, Colin Liddell came on board. Richard ceased to be the editor. He sort of dropped out, lost interest in the site, and for a time, Colin and I were co-editors of alternativeright.com. And then after Richard ended the site, again, I'm not getting into the weeds with all this stuff, I really don't want to do that. After he brought the site to a close in late 2013 in a way that was without warning, and the site was suddenly gone, it was obliterated, then we brought it back and put it on Blogger, and so we brought it back as alternativeright.blogspot.com. But anyway, from the beginning, before either one of us was writing for Alternative Right, Richard Spencer was, and then we started. Myself, Andy Nowicki, and Colin Liddell started writing articles along with a bunch of other people that we had on, just people who submitted articles for possible publication, who we thought would be good to feature. We featured them, but at some point after 2013, sometime I guess maybe around 2015 or so, I ceased to be the co-editor and gave that job to Colin Liddell. Colin and I were then on good terms. That didn't last forever, unfortunately. But anyway, I just want y'all to see what happens now. So you think this is, from everything you read, you think this is a complete site that has all of the articles, including those that were written by one of the OGs. That would be moi, right? So you think if you search this blog, type in my name, hit return, that you'd get a whole bunch of articles that were published by me, that were published at Alternative Right under my name. Instead, you get one article that there's only one article that comes up when you type Andy Nowicki into the search engine, and it's a review of Colin Liddell's book, Interviews and Obituaries. And along with Andy Nowicki, Colin Liddell put a pretty hefty pounce into the old alternative right site. This is written by this guy, Christopher Stigliano, whom I don't know. But he mentions me along with Colin Liddell and says, two different kooks you couldn't find with a two-word yin-yang magic with their site, which during the mid-teens was a beautifully wicked one. So wicked that I actually had to take the site off of my blog roll due to a particularly scathing cartoon that was drawn by Liddell himself. Gotta admit that Liddell seemed like the more stuck-up of the two. Maybe that's due to their somewhat polar opposites, even with their shared socio-political outlook. Not really shared, but I don't want to go. This isn't a place to get into the weeds. But anyway, Nowicki, the ethnic Catholic, who's a good novelist in his own right, as Under the Nile will attest. That's a book I wrote. And Liddell, the skeptical Scot. So then the rest of this is a review of Colin Liddell's book. But the point is, and it's kind of ironic that in this article, the author is talking about how both myself, Andy Nowicki, and Colin Liddell helped to build up the site and make it interesting to read at this time period which he's talking about, which is the mid-teens. I guess that's the time that he became aware of the site. But this is the only thing that comes up when you type in my name. In other words, Colin Liddell has deleted all of my articles from this supposedly complete page that supposedly gives everything written, every podcast ever done. This is what you would think. Like this looks like a complete, archive. This is the archive. Again, this is the archive site of the alt-right, represents the work of the original alternativeright.com, blah, 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 blah. It doesn't say certain articles have been excised at the discretion of Colin Liddell, including the articles of including the articles of the co-editor, Andy Nowicki. But that's truth. But I'm not the only one. Let's look at who else is not included here. Let's just take a name of somebody else that both Colin and I had our problems with, just to show that this is not just a personal thing. Richard Spencer. Now, again, we had our problems with Richard. Eventually, we got along swimmingly at first, and then had our difficulties. Didn't see eye to eye, especially after the 2013 Christmas Day purge. But anyway, you'd think that if you typed in Richard Spencer's name, a bunch of stuff would come up, because Richard Spencer was the founder of the site. He founded alternativeright.com. So let's hit return, and let's see what comes up here. Just one thing comes up, just one thing, and it's Colin Liddell's review of Millennial, Millennial Woes, the thing that he does on his channel at Christmas time, where he has people on. 1 year, Colin and myself were on the Millennial. We were among the roster of the Millennials, but other than that, I have not made the cut or just been in his in his sites, which is fine. Not complaining about that. But anyway, you type in Richard Spencer. Richard Spencer is the bloody founder of Alternative Right, and you type his name in, and it's just Colin Liddell bashing Millennial Woes for various things. Doesn't even matter particularly what it is, or doesn't. It's not so much. My point is not so much what Colin is arguing here, but just to say this is the only thing. Okay, so I could give other examples of people who are no longer in Woe's Good Books, the most obvious example being Richard Spencer. All right, so there you go. That's the one. This is the one article that we type in Richard Spencer's name into the search engine. This is the one article that comes up. Again, putting everything else aside, Richard Spencer should appear much more than this, even though he didn't. He eventually sort of dropped out. But at first, in the 2010, 2011 era, he was writing up a storm for Alternative Right because he was the editor. He was the one keeping it going at first. But none of his articles appear in these archives anymore. They're gone. And that's something. Now, I had to look further, and because there was another man who became sort of the third in when we would do our podcasts. There was a man, an Australian, by the name of Richard Wollstonecraft. And I know he had some articles published. I remember quite well that he had some articles published and that he was on many of the podcasts that we did. And I don't think that Colin Liddell ever even had a falling out with Richard Wollstonecraft, unless one happened and I was not aware of it. But you type in Richard Wollstonecraft, and what comes up? Again, the only article that comes up is the same one where Colin is bashing millennial woes and mentions Richard Spencer in passing in that article, and he also mentions Richard Wollstonecraft in passing in that article. So all the rest of Richard Wollstonecraft's, and yes, that's the way it's spelled. I made sure to ensure that it was spelled correctly. So what's happening here? What's happening here is every single article in these, I haven't gone through it all, and I don't think I don't know if it would be worthwhile to do so, but I'm curious, like, has Colin Liddell just retroactively gone back and taken alternative right / affirmative right as it existed from 2010 to 2022? Has he just has he done something like those Stalin pictures where there's a picture of Stalin and then 4 of his cronies, and then when a couple of them get purged, then there's just an empty spot in the photo where those 2 guys who used to be his cronies but who are now persona non grata have disappeared, and then eventually the 2 other ones disappear, and it's just the Stalin in the corner. Is that what Colin has done with his supposed affirmative right archive? It looks like it is. Again, I don't know. Maybe he has at least one article written by somebody else, but it's the other article that came up was the one that was positively reviewing Colin Liddell's book, Interviews and Obituaries. So other than that, has he just taken everybody else out and just made himself the face of the alternative right as it existed from 2010 until it came to an end in 2022? Because that is, talk about ego. Gee whiz. I again, at first I thought it was just maybe about me and about his our falling out and the way that he now sees me in a negative light. And then when I saw that Richard Spencer was also purged, I mean, that's ballsy, you know, that's ballsy, man. To purge the guy who actually, there wouldn't have been an alternativeright.com. It never would have existed if Richard Spencer hadn't started it in 2010. And now he's nowhere to be found in these archives. And also Richard Wollstonecraft. And I don't know how many others, how many other faithful contributors would I type into the search engine and find that they're all gone, and the only one remaining is just article after article by Colin Liddell. This has just become Colin Liddell's vanity page, this supposed alternative right archive page. Wow, Colin. I am speechless. After 16 minutes of talking about it, I just don't know what else to say. So I'll end it there.